Welcome to the Jewish Education Experience podcast with your hosts, Yasmina and Ari, who will be uncovering gems of wisdom with Jewish educators from around the world.
To our audience, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support and we appreciate you sharing our podcast with others also. Please consider supporting our podcast financially by contributing via Zelle, jewisheducationpodcast@gmail.com, or by joining our Patreon community, www.patreon.com/Jewish Education Experience Podcast. And to all of you Jewish educators and students of Jewish education around the world, chizchu ve'imtzu. May you be strengthened and encouraged in your holy endeavors. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast may not necessarily be those of the hosts. Hello, our guest today is Mrs. Wendy Marder. And actually, Mrs. Marder, she is one of my teachers in Hebrew school. And still to this day, even as an adult, I can't call her Wendy. I have to call her Mrs. Marder. And
even I call her Mrs. Marder.
Okay, Ari.
And and she is the education director at Congregation B'nai Tikva Beth Israel is it Sewell, right? Sewell, New Jersey?
Yes.
And she has been the education director there for a long time. Prior to that, she was a teacher. And we'll let her tell a little bit more about herself with the first question. But hi, Mrs. Marder. Welcome to our podcast. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello. And it's my pleasure and my honor, actually. That's very nice. And always a pleasure to have a former student in the professional world.
Mrs. Marder, can you please tell us a
Yes.
bit more about yourself and how you began your journey in education?
Wow. Well, when I was thinking about that question, I think I was playing school with my younger brothers since I was like 5 or 6, whatever. You know, as a child, I loved the idea of being a teacher. And my mother really encouraged me to be a teacher. She always wanted to be one, but she didn't get that far. And so I did become a teacher, a public school teacher, but primarily a Hebrew school teacher because of my education. I went to Touro College and found out about Touro College through my work with and my activities with NCSY. We belonged to the Orthodox synagogue growing up, though my family was not Orthodox, but the synagogue had NCSY, and it's like the Orthodox BBYO or USY. And actually our family was like, I was NCSY, my husband was USY, my kids were BBYO. So we covered all the
Groups.
We got all the youth groups. And I also in there somewhere. Okay, because my mother was a Hadassah member. But you know, I grew up very eclectic. But I became the regional, like the president of the chapter and then the regional president, and was very active in NCSY. And they gave me a full scholarship to Touro College in 1976. At the time, it was not accredited by Middle States yet. So I was actually on the Middle States accreditation for the college and helped get the school accredited. And it became a legitimate college. And I got a legitimate teaching degree for public school. Of course, when I got married, my husband made me take the NTE so I could be certified in New Jersey too. He converted me to a New Jerseyite from a New Yorker.
But Ami was from New Jersey?
He was always from New Jersey, yes.
I don't think I knew that. Okay.
Yeah, he's from Highland Park, New Jersey. Exit 9 on the Turnpike. Wow. Yes, so he deported me from New York, kicking and screaming. Well, not really, but you know, I don't know. He was a small town boy and he was afraid to be in New York. Anyway, we did very well in New Jersey. So anyway, back up home. So I got my teaching degree, and my first job actually at Westchester Day School in Mamaroneck, which was a beautiful Jewish day school on the Long Island Sound. I believe it's still there. And I taught kindergarten, which was a wonderful experience because we had co-teachers and a supervisor. and I got a lot of experience there, as well as, instruction from my advisor, Leah Claphold. She was wonderful, and hands-on hands-on teaching experience with my students, help from colleagues. It was wonderful. So it was about 6 years until I married Ami, and then we moved here where I had no job, and applied for public school jobs, but only got like part-time jobs and a part-time substituting. But I applied for a job at B'nai Tikva. It was B'nai Tikva at the time on Fish Pond, and I got a Hebrew school teaching job right away there. I was expecting my first child, and so I didn't want anything really full-time anyway.
Right.
So that's how I started teaching Hebrew school here in Jersey. But in New York, I was teaching Hebrew school at Manchester Jewish Center from high school on. And even prior to that, I was working as an assistant in the Hebrew school from like the age of 9. So I was always involved in the Hebrew school in some way, shape, or form. So it sort of was like Bashert that I'm still doing this. I've been with CBTBI. This is going into my 36th year.
Wow.
Started here February of 1986. So 35 years, but this is now my double chai year. Was hoping to go into it with, of course, my husband for the same amount of time, because we got married in 85 and also this job right after in January. So anyway, so that's where I started. Thank you. Yeah. So I've really had the pleasure of teaching every grade as a teacher there. I made it through the first year teaching there, pregnant with my son.
Wow.
Thanks to Mrs. Elaine Zucker, Rabbi Zucker, may she rest in peace, Rabbi Zucker's wife and the Rebbitzin of B'nai Tikva at the time, the founding rabbi and Rebbitzin of B'nai Tikva. And she got me through 7th grade. As you may or may not know, 7th grade is tough. They unbelievably wonderful one-on-one, but when they all get together, all they want to do is socialize. It's very hard. Very hard. I almost delivered the baby a few times of that class, but anyway, so that was, I really enjoyed teaching, but it came to a point where it was time to be an administrator. I had already, taught all the grades, and I had so many ideas, and I wanted to run things, and it was kind of starting to run things. So it was time to, see if I could take the school over, which I did. Much to my younger son's chagrin. My third son, he never got me as a teacher in Hebrew school, so he was a little mad at me.
Oh, I know that's what you look forward to. I remember being so excited when I was going to have my dad as a teacher.
Right, a little. Yeah, so he hasn't forgiven me yet. But whatever. So that was about 21 years ago, because I was reminded how many years ago it is that I became principal, because one of my students is now graduating high school, graduating college a year early. And I held her as an infant when I was hired as principal, because I was working with her mom.
Wow.
So, was the head of education at the time. So yeah, 21 years as principal, and then the other years as a teacher. So, basically definitely more than half my life at CBT and CBTBI. Sure. So it's been a very dedicated journey, working with teachers, students, the staff, the congregants, the boards. It's been not always easy, not always smooth, and a challenge. It's been a challenge, but you learn something every day. And mostly, I think I learned, from my students. I can present a lesson, and they will see another way to look at it, or they'll say something, and they'll say, "Oh, we have to look that up. Let's study that." Teaching in this time of COVID has been definitely a challenge. It has its blessings that, like doing Zoom one-on-one for tutoring and working with the students on an individual basis is quite wonderful. Using the computer to be able to share your screen to show videos and podcast, and all kinds of YouTubes and things like that, and pictures, right there, because everyone's already on screen. That sort of has advantages. getting back to the seventh grade, I'm now teaching seventh grade. I took it on this year because due to COVID and our shortage of teachers who were able to do this. So I am back in seventh grade, but teaching on the screen is a lot different. You don't have the discipline problems, except for telling them to get up and off their bed so we could see their face. They're That's the biggest challenge, is getting them to, be upright in the camera.
Focus.
But
Doesn't sound ideal.
now, usually they're pretty good. I have to just keep an eye on them, but they've been good. But you don't have the discipline problems that you have, like in a very active seventh grade class. They're not busy talking to each other, and maybe once in a while they may be a chat, but they're really very attentive. They've been great. They've been very patient with my lack of Zoom skills, but I'm getting better too. All the teachers have grown quite a bit this year in their skills. It's not my favorite thing to be in charge of technology. I love to learn. I love to teach. I love hands-on mitzvah programs.
Right.
I think
it sounds like you had quite the journey, and you mentioned at the beginning that you would play school and things like that. But yeah. I'm wondering if there were any educators that you particularly admired that kind of inspired you to go into education.
Well, I mean, I believe working, under the like at the Hebrew school when I was just a little kid, working in the classrooms with Miriam Berlinger. She used to run like a craft class for the little kids. I worked with her as her assistant, and later on, she and her husband, the cantor of the synagogue, they had me over for Shabbat and holidays, and so that really helped grow my Judaism a lot, and also my dealings with NCSY and being at people's houses for Shabbaton and things like that. But all through the years, there's been like a lot of people that I've, kind of emulated, like even when my kids were little, like I would take when we went to different synagogues when we were visiting relatives and stuff, and I would see someone leading a high holiday service, the children's high holiday, said, oh, I'm going to do that. So that's what I started doing in my synagogue many, many years ago when my kids were little. All kinds of different educators. I mean, people like Debbie Freeman, the singer. I love to sing, and her songs always inspired me, and the way she gathered everyone to sing, and so she's definitely an inspiration.
Now, do you still have a cantor down there?
This cantor and his wife were up in my synagogue in New York when I was a kid.
Okay.
So they're long retired, but we're in touch just a little bit now. But they were big players in my Jewish education as a teacher, as well as being well-rounded. He also sang, and I always loved to sing.
Yeah, I'm just curious because it sounds like you're really into the musical aspect. Is there still a cantor working there, like regularly at the synagogue?
At our synagogue, no.
Okay.
No, at our synagogue, we all do our best to sing. I have to say that Rabbi Miriam, who was with us along with her husband, Rabbi Mike and Miriam, they did a lot of singing, especially when they sang together. It was really awesome. But Rabbi Miriam actually taught me to read Torah. I never learned that because I was from an Orthodox synagogue. And so I took a Torah reading class with her, and she and Mike kind of perfected my prayer skills and my those kind of things, helped learn a lot of things. We were friends as well as colleagues, but I was also a student. And I have to credit her with teaching me a lot of the reason I can read Torah now. So
that's so interesting, because women, we were able to read Torah and everything. I mean, I know it mainly for bar and bat mitzvah and stuff, but even with some of the other rabbis that were at B'nai Tikva, that's so interesting. You never had the opportunity to learn prior to that.
Well, I didn't, because primarily I was busy raising my 3 children and working part-time. And my husband worked more than two jobs mostly, and I was very helpful, doing a lot of the paperwork for his jobs.
Okay.
And so I worked a lot in the house, and also to enable him to do what he did. I had to write up a lot of his reports and all kinds of things for his credentials, etc. So like I was really, his right hand girl, and so I didn't really have time or the desire really to, to start reading Torah or be that woman who was up on the bima. That was not who I was until I actually started to have time, and I took this class with Rabbi Miriam.
Okay.
And actually, my talit that I still wear with the imaot on it. And at first I wouldn't wear it because I was more of a traditional Jew. I mean, don't forget, I was brought up in Orthodox between my synagogue and Torah. It wasn't something that I was, used to. So I had an Orthodox background, but definitely have evolved and much more eclectic now. I'd probably be more like renewal, like my daughter is pursuing through her Aleph Smicha. So I probably would be more leaning towards that than anything. But yeah, I mean, there's been various educators over the years, Penina Hafna, Dalia Einhorn, who are very creative. They really, piqued my interest in creativity through arts and crafts, through engaging activities, hands-on Judaism. Marder Hirsch was a family educator. You may remember her when you were in our synagogue. We did a lot of family education. Our first program, Passport to Pesach, is something that I model a lot of my experiential learning on. So I believe, a lot of these educators, have influenced me. And now I think I'm influenced a lot by my daughter, who is a master educator. She teaches Jewish day school at Hannah Senesh Community Day School as a 5th grade Judaic studies, but so much more beyond that.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
I do learn a lot with her, which.
Yeah, so we're curious to know how do you talk about God, and especially how might that differ with the different age groups that you've taught in the past?
So I've always talked about God as a belief in your heart. I always say God is infinity and beyond, like Buzz Lightyear.
You don't have to pay royalties on that, do you?
I don't really, write it. I don't write it anywhere, so it's probably okay. But I always
you came up with it first. They should have to pay you the royalties.
Exactly. The childhood song, Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is everywhere. That's pretty much
classic song,
and pretty much my belief that God is everywhere. But if you don't look, you're not going to find God. I always tell the kids, God is neither male nor female. God is not always, it doesn't always show God's loving side or, God's, retributive side. Or, God is a feeling more than a being. And we are, as God's creations, we are partners with God to make this world better. And we can see God more clearly when we are helping someone, when we are creating a wonderful moment, when we are appreciating nature, things like that. So I try to show the kids, even if they're 4 or 3, that God is everywhere, and we need to open our eyes and look, and we need to use our hands and our, every part of our being actually to make the world better. And in doing that, we're going to experience God.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to teach children that God is a feeling, and like love. Like, I asked them, I said, well, what is love? Can you see it? I said, you can see what love can bring. You can feel it. You feel good. So I kind of use that in my teaching. If that
do you find that the students come to you and ask you questions about God?
Not the seventh graders.
Okay.
Do they ask at all, or do they have any interest in talking about it, or not?
They ask as few questions as possible. I have to like pry
them.
Pry the everything out of them, pry the information out of them. And the best way I've seen to be able to do that is to get them to debate. Who's even on with Zoom, especially I'll use like breakout rooms, or and I'll come up with topics. And sometimes they're about a holiday or about a Jewish law or Jewish custom or this or that. And sometimes it's about, do you like Dunkin' Donuts coffee better than Starbucks? You know, like something stupid like that, just to get them talking to each other, because they are not talking to each other. You know, there's like, I can ask a question and the same person will always say, you know, they'll unmute and answer the question.
It's true. It's the same person.
Yeah, and it's difficult. So if I put them in breakout rooms and each room is accountable to report on what they discussed, then it works. Or if they come up with their own debates and they have to argue a point, you know, positive, negative, this or that. So that's kind of how I get them to talk about things. And, you know, if I would give them the concept of God, come up with a discussion of what God is in these breakout rooms, I probably would get more than if I just discuss it.
That makes sense.
You know, so I try to, you know, break things down like that. But with the little kids, you know, when I first take them, because I you know, have done a lot of the high holiday services and a lot of the top Shabbats and things like that. I talk about God as, you know, a feeling, like when we do the Ve'ahavta, I love God with all my heart, my soul, my strength. And we, you know, we physically show them, you know, cover our heart and you know, show them, like, we don't really see God, but we just feel it. And we love God, you know, so it becomes like a concept. God is more of a concept. But I try to tell them early on, you know, God is like love, you know, and if you do good things, you know, for other people, or how does it feel, you know, when mommy or daddy hug you, or grandma, grandpa, you know, hug you, or, you know, that makes you feel good. So, you know, if you help someone do something, you know, makes someone feel good. I said, that's, you know, feeling God. That's, you know, so like a mitzvah is God's work. We are doing work with God. It's not black and white, for sure.
So we talk a lot about, you know, chinuch and education. How would you define education, or what does that mean to you?
I believe that education is learning from everyone and everything. Chinuch, the word is also dedication and open-mindedness. You need to have an open mind to learn. And I believe learning comes best through experiences. And no two people necessarily learn the same. And, you know, this is not like math where 2 + 2 is 4. Right. You know, learning can be an interpretation. Learning can be an experience. And learning could be different on Monday than it is on Tuesday, just because what you're bringing to it. So learning is I best like to teach and to learn in a whole learning experience, using as many senses as possible, and experiencing, you know, as best I can. I personally am not the perfect listener. My husband was a great listener and I was a great talker, so okay, it wasn't too bad. But you probably did that anyway. But anyway, you know, you can learn a lot from listening to others. So over the years, one of the things I've had to learn is to listen better. I feel that we learn from the time we're born until the time we die, and those around us learn by observing us, by, you know, all kinds of different ways. And as a teacher, I've had to learn that not every one of my students is going to be comfortable with every modality. Right. And that's why I try to use as many different modalities as possible, and also ask the kids what works best for you. and especially over Zoom, you have to be, I told my teachers that, at this point, I'm more interested in connecting instead of correcting.
That makes
That's
sense.
correct, connect instead of correct. We want them to be connected to Judaism. We want them to be excited to log on, to see each other, but also to see how they feel connected to Judaism.
And that's what creates that spark that we hope that they want to continue learning and continue being Jewish. And
exactly, that's my biggest hope for my students, is that they stay connected. And when we talk about their davar and about their bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, I talk about how does this davar speak to you? The rabbi generally handles the davar for the bar mitzvahs now, but when I was doing it, and also in class when we talk about the parsha, I'm like, what does this mean to you? How does this connect to your life? That's, for me, the kesher, the connection is the biggest thing. How are you connected to Judaism, and why? Like, it's just something you have to do. I said, I want this to become personal. And I hope through my connection with my students, I'm very personal with them. I learn about what they like and what they don't like, and how they learn, and talk to them and joke around with them. And I ask them about their family, this and that. And I hope, in that way, they'll always think of, CBTBI with this good feeling, and stay connected because of that.
For sure.
And most do. I mean, I'm teaching grandchildren already of my students, which is really scary. I mean,
wow.
Look at you. Look, you're one of my students, and you're already a mother. So, I mean,
it's true. And and our daughter's 4, so I guess she would be entering that age pretty soon.
Well, one of my students, Jeffrey Brown, was my 4th grade student, and his son, God willing, will have a bar mitzvah next year.
Wow. So, at CBTBI.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Full circle. I think will that be my first, probably the first grandchild that have a bar mitzvah at the wow. Yeah. I got to stick around another couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm just curious. You mentioned when you were talking about the Devar Torah and everything, that the bar and bat mitzvah kid, did you say that the kids no longer do it, and the rabbi does it when they have their bar and bat mitzvahs? Or
no. Rabbi works on the Devar. Oh no.
Oh, okay.
They definitely are responsible for Devar Torah. It's just that I used to work with them on that. As because I'm also the B'nai Mitzvah coordinator.
Okay.
Which means I check in on all the details, make sure they know their Haftorah, the Torah, the this, that. I used to correct the Devar Torah and work with them and study with them, but the rabbi took that over. She wanted to have that jurisdiction, so which is fine. But we do parsha every week in school, and so I try to make sure they have the connection personally, and they do. It's good.
Wow, sounds like a lot of experiences you've had.
Yeah, well, at 62, I think you glean a lot of experience. I've also traveled a lot, and a lot of seen a lot of the world, and always try to find the Jewish areas where we've traveled. I mean, even in Alaska, I found a little house. We were hiking on the mountain, and we saw a house that had menorah and mezuzah, and we're like, oh, the Jewish section.
That's really cool.
In the same thing, we went on cruise, and in St. Thomas, I went to a bar mitzvah in the synagogue there. And so, yeah.
Well, we're hoping one day when COVID is done, we want to go to Alaska.
Find that house.
It's a wonderful trip. I highly recommend we did Princess Cruise. I think I actually did Shabbat services on that cruise. I'm pretty sure I led Shabbat services that weekend.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. They were looking for someone to do it, and So, and I had to say Kaddish, I think. So,
okay.
I did.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced as an educator?
Oh gosh. I think they're prioritizing, the families prioritizing Judaism over Hebrew school. over sports and other activities, public school and other activities outside of the synagogue.
So is it, would you say it's definitely related to what they're being taught at home in terms of how challenging it is to actually get them to have this connection with Judaism?
I think the more that is done at home and the more that there's a Jewish connection at home, the easier it is for us to have a motivated, interested child.
Okay.
For sure.
So
It's difficult.
that's the challenge, huh?
Yeah, I find the biggest challenge during sports season are the coaches that demand the kids be there 5 days a week.
Huh.
That's like has always been my biggest challenge is sports versus religious school.
Right.
I don't think that's changed in 30 years. Really, really hard. But what I have seen change over the 35 plus, probably, over 4 years in Jewish education, easily. What I have seen is change is the parents prioritizing. If the kid is not an athletic wizard, an athletic genius, that means they may not get a college scholarship. So he school definitely is not up there in priority. If the bar and bat mitzvah year, okay. So I do see more of a push that year. The kids are more motivated. Parents are more motivated. They want the bar mitzvah. They come to service. But all the years before, it's kind of a battle, and it's just very difficult to know that sports is like this new religion. So, and COVID, of course, has been a challenge. But
have you noticed with COVID though, parents are involved more and there's less of the sports, and how has that affected the learning?
Well, they're still going to their sports and this and that when sports are happening. But my students in particular are kind of enjoying being in school on COVID because, first of all, it's less time. We do like 2 40-minute sessions. I mean, I'm using the free Zoom right now because of all my teachers, we all used unlimited, it would be, too costly, but it kind of works to work 40 minutes with a group and give them a break. And then we come back together, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, and we work 40 minutes. And then usually another, hour, the last hour or so is like one-on-one time with my students, if they'll come. They don't all come, but I have them, we have the availability, and so do the students, of coming any night of the week or coming in the afternoon or whenever. So my teachers are also finding that they're able to connect one-on-one with each of their students in a way they couldn't do in class because they had 12 students in front of them.
Right.
So they Zoom in with us for 15 minutes and you get this great time with just one-on-one, which I love. And the kids also say, well, they don't spend so much time driving back and forth to the synagogue, and they don't have to necessarily leave one activity for another activity. And so they're a little more relaxed. Like I said,
probably less interruptions too, with constantly not having to discipline somebody or.
Right. And I mean, they still put in the chat, I have to go to the bathroom, be right back. Don't have to tell me, I'll figure it out, but it's, sometimes they're too relaxed, like they're laying in the bed, but for the most part, I think, we have them for this time period pretty attentive. And the one-on-one, like I said, has been something that I'm probably going to keep as part of the school year, even when we go back in person. I'm going to talk to the education committee about building it into our teaching program, that we have a certain amount of time in school, but also I want to build in an hour a week that the teachers can have these office hours on Zoom, drop-in time, one-on-one time. I think it's so beneficial. So a lot of the things that are happening, on the internet and COVID related, that we had to do are turning out to be kind of like a blessing, so we'll work around it. But that's what education is, and that's what being a teacher is. Being a teacher is being being constantly engaged with learning, with your students, with the world, just being aware and of everybody and everything, including yourself and needs and resources and things like that. So I think this has been, for me, which this year has been very difficult personally, the teaching and the involvement in the school has kept me alive and kept me emotionally up.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like
Really.
a serious challenge. So how do you stay motivated as an educator?
Well, that's what I was saying, is that the education has kept me motivated each day, when I'm depressed about my, husband passing and COVID or what have you. I have something exciting. I have a student to work with, or I have a program to build, or I have something to plan. There's always something going on in my head. And I have a community. CBTBI is a wonderful community, and as is the educational community, the extended educational community that I have at my fingertips, even more so now because of all our connections online. So, when I'm getting like, oh, I don't have the strength today to teach or this and that, all I have to do is take a look at the material I'm going to be teaching and research what can I do to spark these kids, to get them excited. So teaching and educating has always been very motivational for me, whether I'm learning or whether I'm teaching or whether I'm planning something.
So you mentioned that you yourself, you do appreciate the overall education community, and you reach out to other educators. And what advice would you give to new educators who are just beginning their journey?
I do that on a yearly basis. I'm instructing new teachers all the time. So one of my firm beliefs is have patience with yourself and your students. Know your material very well, but don't be afraid to say, I need to look that up. How could we find the answer to that? Or something like that. Always know you can call me. It's always good to have like a mentor, somebody that can help you. And just keep learning. Students have no patience for someone who doesn't seem to know their subject, or just reads out of the book, or doesn't engage them in a conversation or questions. They lose respect very quickly for that. So speaking of respect, you need to respect your students, their needs, their questions, and you need to tell them that you are listening to them and hear them. That's pretty the grassroots, respecting of each other and always learning and trying to improve yourself.
Kind of going off of that and helping other educators know their stuff, how do you think we can help our students to really build a proper foundation, a proper Torah foundation, so that when they go out into the world, they're comfortable with their Judaism and there are so many challenges when they leave school, and how do we prepare them?
I think the most important thing is something that we actually do in the synagogue, and I believe very, very much as an educator, is hands-on. That let the kids lead services, have them touch the Torah, do Hagba, do Glila, point, learn to read Torah, learn their way around the synagogue. From the time they're little, take them on a tour, let them touch things, look at things. Certainly with COVID, we been cut down on as far as the hands-on approach, except for the bar and bat mitzvahs. We do have them in person still, but have engaging activities that involve all the senses that, you know, really help them engage, be part of it. It's not, Judaism is not, you know, we are the people of the book, but if we are only people of a book, we're going to lose our students. So they need to do, we take the kids into the kitchen for the holidays and we make holiday recipes and explain why and the history. So hands-on living experiences that are fun.
Right. And it develops that connection with them and they'll hold on to that.
Right. Like Mitzvah Day, what we did last year was great. You know, we went up to the JCC with all the other synagogues and we had a mitzvah project. Our synagogue had one and all the synagogues had one, and our students from the whole school participated in every single table that had a project, and, you know, either packed bags for chemo patients or packed pocketbooks with, you know, toiletries for the women's shelter, a million other things I can't even think of right now. But we hands-on, they did things, you know, brought food, bags of food to distribute, etc. But those are, like, even now with COVID, they're doing mitzvah projects like writing cards to senior homes, sending pictures, things like that. So I think it's very important to involve your children. I mean, I like to run the Hebrew school like I would run my own home. You know, light the candles together, say the Hamotzi, say the Kiddush, do those things hands-on, so that they see it, feel it.
I did tribute to you too, because now Laura, your daughter, is following in that path.
Yeah, well, that is
difference.
It certainly is a tribute to Ami and I, because she's taken his love of psychology and meditation and ways to feel better about yourself as a person, and combine that with Judaism, and that's really wonderful. But we have a lot of educators. Look at you, look at Jenna, look at all the Clavens students. Lily Davis is a teacher now, not necessarily Jewish education, although she has worked for me before. Like, you know, so we do have a bunch of graduates who are teachers. So, you know, that's a tribute to really my whole teaching staff. So it's been great, and I'm very gratified that, you know, when my, you know, bar mitzvah goes well and they all know their parts. I mean, nobody reads Torah unless they run their Torah part by me, if it's a student, of course. They all have to read their Torah parts to me before they go up on Shabbat to read. So this group, I had a lot of students reading, and they were like, when students said, "Oh, I'll be fine by Saturday, don't worry." I go, "Oh no, you don't go Saturday unless you read to me Thursday night." So he was awesome, just terrific. And I was nervous because I didn't think he would do it. And he even said, "This was so much easier than when I did it from my bar mitzvah." I go, "Well, yeah, you didn't read out of the Torah, because we, for COVID, we're not allowing everyone up to the Torah except the bar mitzvah."
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I was up there just pointing. But, you know, so first of all, it's easier off the paper. And second of all, this is different. You're an adult at 18 doing this, as opposed to a 13-year-old, you know? I said, so you already have done a lot of challenges in school, and this is not as big a challenge as it seemed 5 years ago, you know?
Right.
So, but that's very gratifying that my students are coming back and actually reading Torah, leading services, things like that. So that's kind of awesome.
Well, tying it all together, what do you think, I know it's a challenging question, that Jewish education will look like in the future?
Oy. I think that Jewish education is going to have to be a part of daily life. I don't know if our Hebrew schools are going to be able to survive all these challenges, once we go back to a daily routine and life as we knew it before, I don't know, we're finding it's a big challenge. I mean, we closed Midrashah where we couldn't handle a confirmation class. Kids were too busy. Once they get past the bar mitzvah, they're kind of like, I'm too busy for this. So I'm thinking that other than the kids who go to a day school, because the parents value that education, or they want their kids going to a private school for whatever the reason is, we're going to have a more hands-on Judaism, a Judaism of family education, of activities, things that bring the whole family in to the synagogue, and keep them engaged in that way. For some reason, the bar and bat mitzvah still seems to be a draw for many families. But I have seen over the years, I've lost students because they're too involved in sports. They just can't make the commitment of coming to Shabbat services or this or that. So.
Right. I mean, is it part of the problem is that the bar and bat mitzvah is like a day, right? It's like a one-time thing.
Yeah.
So how can we have better experience for the whole family?
Well, that's why I said the hands-on experience. Like our rabbi is calling kids up to co-lead with her. They get the experience of being on the bima as like a co-rabbi. So the more we bring these families into the synagogue, as we are allowed to go back in, and we even do it on Zoom and Facebook, just keeping them engaged in Judaism as in any way we can.
Right.
So challenging.
It's very challenging. And I always talk about engagement. We couldn't keep a confirmation class running. So I said, we'll turn it into a teen engagement. The problem is everyone is so busy with different things that it's hard to get them there once a month even to participate. But that's what I'm hoping is, we have to motivate them and connect them and make it important. They have to feel important and necessary when they are at the synagogue.
For sure.
Start earliest age, a part of what's going on, not just a visitor or an observer.
Right.
So
what do you think is going to happen with the synagogues after COVID? I mean, there's issues there too, right? Similar ones.
Yeah, I do wonder. I mean, a lot of our congregants are anxious to see each other and be together, but a lot of our congregants, on the other hand, are quite content with having a cup of coffee while they're watching services. And I can't say I'm immune from that. It's very relaxing to turn on services while I'm sitting at the kitchen table.
Right. And you can watch somebody else do it for you.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's why I said that it's so important that we engage our congregants, all ages, okay? To keep them involved. It's just difficult because, even before COVID, the families wanted to drop the kids off and go to the gym and go to shopping and because that's their free time. You're a working parent 5 days a week. Well, hello, Saturday you got services and Sunday you got class. And oh my gosh, when do I go to the gym and the shopping and this? When do I have time alone with my husband? When I have this? And I can totally get it, and we've cut our family programs down because of that too. But, that's something that I feel is really very valuable. So, I'll beg them for, 3 times a year or 4 times a year to come to the synagogue and participate with their child, so.
Right. So you're saying it's much more about the experience than, say, like the actual content. It's not like you would just put together content, hand it out to the families and have them go through it themselves. It's more about bringing them in to have an actual experience.
I think you need a combination because you, of course, do need content. And we have sent home like packages that some families take advantage of. Like our synagogue sent home bags with the machzor and all kinds of things for Rosh Hashanah, around the challah, etc. And it was wonderfully received. But not all the families even opened it up, We're going to send it home for Purim, the same thing, a Megillah, a Grogger, coloring sheets for the younger families, Shalach manot. So we're going to send that home too. Again, a lot of people appreciate it and some people won't even care. It's important to send home the proper things and the tools and the content, but you also need to motivate. So we are offering wonderful programs and services and all kinds of things on Zoom, on Facebook, but how do you get them to turn it on? I don't have that many students who are tuning into Shabbat services. There's really no accountability. They go, "Oh, you're keeping track?" I'm like, "Yeah, send me when you've been there." But how do I know they're really watching it? They just turned it on, you know? Right. So I said, I tell them, I said, this is the easiest way to learn the prayers. The rabbi calls out the page and you follow. I said, I can't spoon feed it any better than this. And I said, and you don't even have to watch your Friday night or Saturday. Could be Thursday, could be Wednesday, could be anytime you want. And it's still not happening. So I don't know, like you can be as motivating as you want, but I think you need the content. There are still people who really want it, and you need it for your educators, you need it for your people who do want to learn, but you need a little bit more motivation, engagement to get the mainstream who are, what's your choice on a Saturday morning? Let's see, soccer or services?
Yeah.
But the coaches have made it almost impossible to choose services because if you don't show up to the game, you're out.
Right.
So we have continuously battled this for years and years and years. So
and I think also the other thing is, it's always a challenge when they're younger, but then maybe you'd have a chance when they're older, but it seems like the system is kind of teaching them that the bar bat mitzvah is kind of like a graduation ceremony and then they're done, right?
And yes. And when I was teaching confirmation, I taught it every week. There was continuity. We did trips, we did things like that. And that I used it as like a carrot, like, oh, we're going to go on this, we're going to do this. Part of confirmation, we have dinner every Wednesday night. We do, we make dinner, we eat dinner, we do this. So that is very, a lot of the schools are successful when they're doing that hands-on socializing along with the eating and learning. Trips and things like that also very motivating, but it's just difficult to get them all in at the same time and keep them motivated. But I'm not going to give up. I think the engagement, especially for our post-bar mitzvah group, is very important. And in that engagement, to me, includes making them feel useful. My biggest success as a principal, before COVID anyway, is my teacher assistant program. Having my post-bar mitzvah students working in the classrooms with the students and the teachers. They work under a teacher and they help the students individually. They help the teachers doing all kinds of things, from errands to one-on-one teaching with the student, to actually teaching lessons, doing arts and crafts, what have you, whatever it is. I mean, I had 8 assistants last year.
Wow.
And it's one of my biggest successes because I have those students from like 13 through high school graduation. And most of them who are, if they stay local, they stay as a teacher, like Rebecca Clavens is stayed local and because she went to Rowan, she's finishing Rowan. So, that is my biggest success, the teacher assistant program. And there's the engagement. Okay, so if there's engagement there, well, why can't there be like a rabbi's assistant program? Why can't there be, so it needs to be built into how the whole synagogue runs.
I can see that.
Rabbi Rachel's great at that. She's great at bringing the kids in and having them lead services with her and things like that. It's, just of course, COVID took over and we don't have assistants right now. So, but that program they all want because they do it 1 year as a volunteer, and if we are amenable to each other, they come back and they get paid. And there's nothing like a 14-year-old getting a salary. They're very
true. Extra motivation.
There's motivation, but it's, they're not making a fortune, but they feel very important.
Yeah.
They're like a teacher, and if they're successful at it, and the kids like them, and then it's exciting for them, and they continue. I've had some really good success. Most students, I have rarely have had to let anyone go or have had an issue. But that's like one of my favorite things is the teen program that works, with that. So.
Well, that's awesome. And we look forward to seeing more of that, and hopefully other educators can maybe incorporate some of that with their schools and different things also. And again, we just want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We really learned a lot from you, and we enjoyed talking with you and catching up a little bit.
Okay. Sorry about, you can have a lot to, sorry.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mrs. Marder. And I guess I can attest that you have at least one good student here. I know firsthand.
Oh, well, Yasmina's always was a dream student. Are you kidding? And a teacher. And yeah, it was sad for me when she had to go get married and everything, go to Israel. We're wonderful. It's great. But she comes from a dad who's a wonderful teacher, and so, and a family of teachers, I think, right? Got a lot of people who are teachers in that family, right? Yes.
It's true.
Yeah. I think it kind of runs in the families, but we're fortunate. We're fortunate to have people like you. I'm glad you're researching this, and I hope to see the fruits of your labor. And the child of your labor, a picture. In the right.
Thank you. Amen to that.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, and we'll keep you posted how things go.
All right. Take care.
Take care. All the best.
Bye.